When we're talking about an affiliate cup, is having 4 athletes that are sort of linked to a CrossFit box really the best way? Wouldn't it be better if there was some way we could measure the depth of strength within our local affiliates? And now the name makes sense. Welcome back to the channel, and today we'll be talking about the ultimate affiliate cup, and if depth of strength wasn't a big enough clue, yes, of course I'll be talking about Strength in Depth Origins that will be taking place January 28th and 29th. And first of all, we'll be talking about the event itself, what makes it so special as a team event, and then I'll be bringing on Mr. ChalkingFitness himself, Tom Forder, to dive into some specifics regarding this year's competition. As always, just a gentle reminder to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, like the video, and most importantly, share it around with others. So let's talk about Strength in Depth Origins. Now, for many, when we hear Strength in Depth or SiD, perhaps we're thinking, hold on, wasn't that the semi-final event in London that qualified people to the games? Wasn't that formerly a sanctional event? And while yes, it had team competition, I don't remember it being any different from any other copy and paste team event that I've seen at a CrossFit event. And to that, I would say you are half right. Yes, SiD, Strength in Depth, was a semi-final, it was a sanctional, but we're talking about SiD Origins. And as that name implies, we are going back to the model that was first used, the origin of Strength in Depth. And it was first and foremost always a team event, with the members of the team having to come from the same box or gym. Now, we might think, apart from the most recent changes we've seen in the rulebook coming into play next year, in that brief period of time we had super teams, how is this any different from how CrossFit does its team competition? Well, when you look at the format of a team competing at the CrossFit Games, for example, we know that they are teams of 2 men and 2 women that have to be linked to a CrossFit box, at least on paper. The question could come into then, how much of a part of that community are they? Are they jumping in on classes? Are they training with the other people there? Is it solely team training done in open gym? Obviously, we can look to teams like Reykjavik, that was Annie Forsdottir's team, that are quite an extreme example of just getting 4 people together. But even teams that weren't sort of unofficial super teams, how much training were they doing with the rest of a CrossFit affiliate and its community? Probably and understandably, for teams that were trying to make it all the way to the CrossFit Games, it was going to be a lot of team training on their own, away from the rest of the general population of the CrossFit box. So when we look at that sort of team, we can ask the question of, is that really an affiliate cup? Well, Strength in Depth Origins sort of eliminates the majority of these problems simply with the format of the competition and the makeup of the teams themselves, because they are big teams. Do you remember when the games dropped from teams of 6 to teams of 4, and we thought, wow, teams of 6, that was kind of complicated. Those teams were pretty big. Well, SiD Origins doubles down. They actually have teams of 12. And before you think, well, hold on, teams of 12, that is going to be complicated to follow, trying to see 12 people grab onto a worm and making sure they're all locking out at the same time. Well, don't worry, the programming is a little bit smarter than that. What we'll typically see are things like teams going out in waves, maybe having to send out 2 or 3 athletes at one time. We'll also see at times there were events that were split, so you would have to send half your team to do one WOD and half your team to do the other. And of course, who can forget 1 rep maxes, which people are doing 1 by 1 anyway. So it is still a pretty clear and easy event to follow as a spectator. But why so many, and what is the structure of the team? Well, these teams of 12 are formed of 7 men and 5 women, and in each group there needs to be 2 masters. One needs to be over 35 and one over 40. And I know some will be thinking, well, hold on, why is 7-5 split? Why not 6 and 6? It seems a little bit sexist if you ask me, to which I would say,
what's wrong with being sexy? I mean, there's no trouble with sexist.
Well, actually, there is a very good reason for this. For the majority, it is easier to find men to put on their team compared to women. Now, I know that is not going to be the case everywhere, and there will be gyms and boxes and affiliates that actually have the opposite problem, where they've maybe got a lot of strong women that really want to do this competition, and they're struggling to find men to fill out the team. But this isn't an arbitrary number that has been created by SiD, but actually this reflects the ratio of men and women signing up for the Open. So if we want to see more women on the team, we need to encourage more of them to sign up for the Open. But what about things like training camps or other organizations or communities that are linked but don't actually train together physically? Are they excluded from this competition? Well, they're not completely left out. Now, of course, it might not be fair that a training camp that is going to probably consist of higher level athletes because they're joining a training camp, and that they have the option to pick people from, I would say, anywhere in the world, but I guess anywhere within the sphere of that training program or training camp, and with the ability to travel to Bath for this event. But having them go head to head against another affiliate that can only have access to those that are members of the affiliate, so it's a real geographical limitation. And that is why these kind of camps and organizations will be part of the invitational leaderboard. So once again, SiD Origins is going to have an invitational division made up of 10 teams that are coming from organizations, communities, training camps, things like that will be able to go head to head. They'll do the same workouts that the other 70 teams are doing, but they will be on their own leaderboard. So that will be something fun to watch if you happen to be at the event. Now, talking about watching the event, let's talk about the community in general, because something else that makes SiD Origins special is that community element. And that's probably because this is one of the closest things we have that emulates what we would maybe consider to be traditional team sports. The passion that fans have for their local team that is representing their town. Well, that is the same passion that members of their box have when they are supporting the team that bears their name. A team that will be formed of people they know, people they train with. And it gives them that sense of ownership that makes the spectator experience at SiD always something very special. And the fact that these teams are big and they include masters and they're limited to geographic locations, that means people move away, people get injured. Those rosters are not set in stone year on year. And that gives members something to train for. Maybe that's the goal. Can I train all year and make it onto the team and help represent my gym? Now at this point, the qualifiers have come and gone, the leaderboard has been locked, and invitations have been sent out. We've also had a chance to see how teams have performed through the qualifiers. So what a time to bring in a man who knows more about CrossFit statistics within the UK than anyone else I know. It is the man behind ChalkingFitness himself, Mr. Tom Forder. Well, thanks for joining me, Tom, so people can see the face behind the posts that are put up on ChalkingFitness. You've put up a really interesting one about strength in depth. You've obviously crunched a lot of the numbers. You know a lot of the teams and people involved. So I thought instead of just putting up your post and maybe commenting on it, why not get you on just to share perhaps some things we should be looking out for this year at Strength in Depth?
Oh, no, thanks, Jason. It's great to chat to you, and I must say it was SiD Origins that really brought me out of the woodwork. It's been quite a few months, but this is probably one of my favorite UK competitions because of how kind of community and affiliate orientated it is. So I was very happy to kind of crunch the numbers and start having a look at kind of the various qualifiers that 173 teams kind of went through. There were more registered, but 173 put in results for all of the qualifiers, which is, given that that's teams of 12, like over 2,000 athletes, right? It's a big kind of deal just to do the qualifiers, never mind the finals that we've got in January. So really, really excited about that.
So we are both going to be there on the floor in January. So what should we be looking out for in particular?
So I think kind of the great thing about kind of strength in depth is it seeks, as it would, to test so many different areas, right? What we're not going to get in qualifiers is things kind of like running and swimming. We know that that's a kind of typical staple. So that'll be fun in January. If they do introduce, the running's in, the swimming's inside, right? But, if they do a trail run again, that might be interesting.
It was in the snow last year.
It snowed in 2021. But I think kind of the other thing is there's always going to be some big lifts. I think we had, kind of both snatch and clean and jerk with the male and female kind of groups taking one of those lifts each in 2021. And we saw in the qualifiers that, they tested 1RM snatch, but off the back of a 3K team row, so that's going to be really exciting to see who can kind of who's got the cardio, kind of the ability to kind of get through kind of high volume, who are the cardio bunnies, but equally have got the kind of the heavy lifters as well. And I flagged that New Wave were really impressive in that sense because they won the 3K row and then went on to kind of come fourth in the snatch event, right? And technical lift. So yeah, that's really kind of cool to see. There's not just brute strength going on there.
Nice. So obviously we've mentioned 173 teams, so that's the most that ever took part in the qualifiers. So already we're seeing sort of big numbers. I noticed that you've put out that a number of affiliates have been able to put up multiple teams this year.
Yeah, and I'm going to apologize again for incorrectly saying that Motion qualified 2 teams when actually they qualified 3 teams. So they join the WIC CrossFit there in kind of taking 3 teams. So, like 36 kind of athletes there from each affiliate, but undoubtedly a lot more than that were involved in the kind of qualifiers. So that is, I think the coordination and dedication just to kind of like submit a full suite of qualifiers is amazing. To get to kind of the finals is another amazing achievement for any affiliate. So for an affiliate to take 3 teams is phenomenal. And I think like Motion Storm kind of winning the qualifiers, that's kind of like they're definitely a team to watch, kind of like going into the finals. I think they came like 13th in 2021. But they've got a number of kind of couple of athletes with games experience, and so like Harrison and Grace, and I was actually chatting to someone who's in one of those qualifying teams. I think they're in the second team. They're all working really hard, so I think they'll be bringing a good couple of teams, and definitely at least Motion Storm are one to watch for trying to take that top spot off Jolly Sailor.
Yeah, were there any other teams or athletes that maybe stood out after kind of looking through their qualifiers, just people that perhaps we should be keeping an eye on at the event?
So I'm going to give a massive shout out to Talisman Titans, right? So they're I've had Ty on the ChalkingFitness podcast. They qualified in 69th last in 2021, finished 65th. Yet they've qualified in 14th this year. So they're doing some good stuff at their affiliate. So, really, there's going to be a buzz there for them to bring their community across, and definitely excited to see how they perform on the competition floor in Bath in January. I've already mentioned Motion. They're kind of like clearly bringing some strong teams. The other shout out's got to go to CrossFit Bristol North as well. So 82nd in 2021. So missed out on going to the finals in Bath, and they're only down the M4 in Bristol. But this year they qualified in 17th. So massive achievement for them. So they're another one to watch. So I think that'll be cool. So
I think even just looking at the numbers, and I've mentioned that this is really, as well, you've said as well, testing the strength and depth of the affiliate, but also the community aspect of this event is something really unique. And I think it encourages members to kind of get involved, to try and join the team, to train with the team throughout the year. And what we're seeing is year on year, this kind of progression of these teams, because especially if a team just misses out, or even if a team does well, it stirs up the rest of the affiliate to, want to join them to do it as well. We've seen this in Bath, them getting 2 teams. They had 1 team last year. They qualified relatively low, finished, very respectably. And then this year they've been able to put up 2 teams because, and, obviously being a member there, I've been able to see throughout the year that people have been, this has been in their calendar since last year. And I think the fact that we're seeing more and more teams that have made these big jumps up the leaderboard already with the qualifiers, it seems that this is sort of a pattern that is being repeated throughout these affiliates.
And I think another thing is like, we mentioned it's 12 athletes in a team, plus, more than that for the qualifiers. You consider, say, the affiliate cup at the games, right? You've got 4 athletes, right? There's 4 kind of potential areas where you might pick up an injury or have a weakness or something kind of go wrong. That means you can't, something's got to change, right? You've got 12 athletes, right? And you're going to have your specialists, you've got your masters athletes. There's so many things that can happen there. So I'm always really cautious about saying they qualified here, went to the finals, and then in the finals they performed like that because, well, first and foremost, competing in your box is very different to being out on the competition floor, especially when you're sharing it with 10 other teams of 12 or however many are on the floor for that event. And then you've got a huge, it's typically standing room only in the bleachers looking down onto the competition floor. So that's a big difference. But also you've got to consider that there's so many opportunities there for injuries to be picked up, or for people just to get their double unders right, or start being able to link chest to bar better than they did before. So suddenly things can really, really change from the qualifiers to the finals.
So just going a little bit left field now, you were also there last year, just picking up on some of the things you've just mentioned. Is there anything you would advise teams, maybe if you were going to be coaching a team, and you're going to say kind of when you're thinking about the event, what are some of the things maybe you noticed last year that perhaps tripped people up unexpectedly, or things that teams did that gave them a little bit of an advantage because they made certain choices? Is there any kind of little bit of advice you would give just based on the stats, on the numbers, on the things you've seen being there last year?
Sure. So I think like two areas. The first one would be, we're going to see some max lifts, and there's going to be a clock element. And I think really having a good understanding of like opening lifts, potential kind of lifts, is a PB on the cards, because there's that whole thing of like, what order do you go in? You need to kind of like be really comfortable with each other in terms of, say, like, okay, you start and then you kind of like come in. And I think there was also there was a ladder, I believe, at one point. So did you kind of save your strong athlete to kind of rep the heavy barbell at the end, or did you use your strong athlete to very quickly get through some of the lighter reps? So really having a feel for people's comfort with the barbell, that's one area. And then the other, and this was definitely tested in the qualifiers as well, is synchro gymnastics. We're going to see that on the massive rig they have at finals, like having that kind of like, whether it be synchro toes to bar, synchro pull-ups, or, qualifiers had synchro chest to bar as well. I mean, it was amazing to see like 76 teams complete that workout. And I think it was 2 teams of 6. So, you needed to have a good number of athletes that could do synchro chest to bar, right? So it does seem like a lot of teams already have that kind of synchro dialed in. So I guess that's the beauty of us, lockdown's been long gone now. We can actually start training together.
Now, I don't want to put you on the spot. Do you want to call a shot on who you think is going to, let's say, take a podium spot? I'm not going to say they have to win, but is there anyone that you're saying, I think this is the one I'm going to back for at least landing on the podium, just to give them some motivation and light a fire up under all the other teams that are competing that are not that team?
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I've already mentioned motion, so I'm not going to jump. They're one to watch for the podium. I'm also gonna say, you can't rule out Jolly Sailor. Jolly Sailor kind of like, I think they kind of retained the title, so they won 2020 and, well, not 2020, but they kind of won 2021 and whatever year it was before that. So they're one to watch, and we've not seen them perform in the qualifiers because they qualify automatically. So I think there's going to be a close eye on them. I know you said one to watch, and I've already given you 2, and I'm just going to break the rule even further and give you a third, which is I think we've got to look at CrossFit BFG as well, coming down from Loughborough or Leicester. Can't remember which one it is. They're so close to each other. But they finished in 12th in 2021, but they've done really well in the qualifiers, coming 4th. So I think they're going to be a one to watch as well. So that's exciting.
Well, they always seem to be a team that people are watching anyway. So
yeah. I mean, we all know that there's that photo of kind of Zach George in front of his team kind of making that lift. I feel like that was one of the most shared photos from the 2021 finals. But they're putting in a good shift in the qualifiers, so they're my third one to watch.
Right. So I asked if there was going to be a team landing on the podium. You've given me 3 teams. Last time I checked, there was only 3 spots on the podium. So it will be interesting to see if that is the podium, and if it's not, it'll be interesting to see what people have to say to you when they see you there at the event Sunday afterwards. Thank you so much for joining me, Tom. It's been a pleasure to talk to you a little bit about this event. So now I think people have a good understanding of what the event is, and also some extra details that they can look forward to. So and I look forward to seeing you in person in just a couple of weeks.
100%.
Well, there we have it. Strength in Depth Origins will be here before we know it. But as always, I'm curious about you. Is this an event you plan to be at? If you're there and you happen to see me walking around looking lost and confused, don't forget to come up and say hello. But if you're not in this part of the world, is there an event similar where you are? Is there something that is a real highlight for your competition calendar? And are these the kind of events that we want to see in the off season? As always, I'd love to know what you think, so please leave a comment below. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you, yes, in a future video, but also maybe in person at SiD Origins.